5 Chevy Equinox. So I'm doing the brakes and rotors, and if you can see here, there's like a groove, and if you feel, you can feel this lip. And I was having issues when I was stopping; they were kind of pulsating. So I'm gonna change the pads at the same time. I'm doing the rotors. So good things to have is PB blaster, brake cleaner, some brake grease, and then anti-seize to put on the threads, so you don't have problems getting these nuts out. So yeah, so there's your rotor. It's on both sides. There's even a bigger lip on the back here, and that should all be flat smooth when you look at the new one. So first thing, there's a piston right there in your caliper here, and then there's like two parts to the caliper. There's like the caliper and then the caliper bracket, and then there's just 4 bolts holding it on, and then your brake line hose. But since I'm not changing the caliper, I don't need to take this hose off. But they do recommend when you're doing your brakes and your rotors, you should probably just change this as well, and then because otherwise that piston in there gets stuck, and then when you change your brakes, after changing this piston, it's used to the wear of the brakes, so then it'll get hung up, and then it'll catch your rotor and brake and burn them out. So I'd recommend just changing this too, but I've had enough of this Equinox, so I've changed the brake. There's like 200,000, 190 on it right now, and I've changed the brake pads twice, and I don't know if I've ever changed the rotor. So I bought the parts online. I can show you that here, and they weren't too expensive, and figure try and get another winner out of this. So there's the guide pin bolts. There's 2. There's one there and then one there, and they got these rubber grommets, and you can buy extra ones of these. If you have to torch that, you can torch it and burn these off and just buy a new one, or they come with your new caliper. If you can't get these nuts out, so that's you got to torch them. And so yeah, you know, this is the driver's side. So yeah, so I want to go that way to unloose. So there's your 2 guide pins, and then there's 2 more bolts. This is a 15, and your guide pins are 14. So if you have to, you know, if you're in an easy climb, and you can just use a 15mm wrench and do it. But I always PB blast it, and then I'm PB blasting the bottom one is down there. This one right here. So I always use a deep socket. This is a short deep socket, and I'm using this crank one to get in there. If you have to, you can cut this wire loose if you don't have like a bending head ratchet, and then get this wire out of the way, and then re-zip tie it back down, and that'll give you a little more room to get a 15mm socket and a wrench in there. But just so I don't strip these heads, I always plan on these bolts coming out like a pain in the ass. So that's why always you put the stuff back on your bolts, your bolt heads after you're done. So there's the top one, and I'm going up, and I cracked that one loose. It was pretty tight. So here's the bottom one. Show you that. So then where it is, it's right there. So that bolt down there, it's a 15mm, and then make sure you're on there good. Yep, see, I'm gonna need 2 hands to crack this loose. You do have more room on the bottom one to where if I don't want to, if it gives me too much, I can get a breaker bar in there, and you might be able to get that breaker bar with the short head into that top one if you're not getting that top one off. But so yeah, I'm trying to crack this bottom one loose here. So I cracked that loose. So now I'm taking out these top two. And then be careful, because once you pull these out, this caliper, it'll probably be stuck on here. That's why I wedged this in there, to give it slack to relieve the brake pads from the rotors. But then the only thing that would be holding this on is this rubber hose, and you don't want to do that. So just use a bungee or put like a bucket or something down there to make it so this doesn't fall and you put pressure on that hose. So I'm just kind of holding the rotor right now as I take out these bolts. So I got the top one out there, and that's where you want to put that thread. It looks like there actually might have been some on there. I think I probably did that when I changed these brakes a while ago, so I'm surprised they didn't come out easier. So that I'm just gonna twist. I need a little more. That bottom one, you got a lot more room to get into. So I'll crack the top one first loose, and you should have an easier time cracking that bottom one loose. Alright, so then can I hand twist it out? Just because I'm holding the camera here too. I'll hold it with my knee so the caliper doesn't fall. I'm holding it with my knee just because I'm holding the camera, and then, okay, that's out. So that's the bottom bolt I'm gonna set there. It's kind of just, I just like to keep the top and bottom bolt in the same one. So yep, as you can see, it's loose, but now the brake pads are stuck to the rotor. So I need to push in. So let's see if I can just, so that I'm going to be using, you want to push that caliper in, or the piston in. Use wedging off the rotor in there, but do it kind of top bottom to push it in, so you're evenly pushing that piston in. I might have to set this down here though. So yeah, push. Use the edge of the frame of the caliper to just kind of give you a little wedge, and then make sure you're on the inside of the rotor. Kind of just push it in, depending on how. Oh, see, there she goes. Be careful, be careful for that gas or brake line. And it's off. So then I'm gonna bungee it up to keep that rubber hose from getting bent. So it's off. Alright, so the caliper's off, and then the rotor should just slide right off. And mine actually coming off. Otherwise, you might have to beat the shit out of this thing, pounding it on there. I've had problems with them coming off before because they stick to your bearing here. So yeah, if you ever take them off, you can put some of that anti-seize like on each of these, so then the inside of your rotor, see how rusted that gets? It just gets, so yeah, just slide it right off then. So while you have all this off is another good time to inspect everything. But I'm just gonna change the rotors and the brake pads. So the brake pads are still in here, and then the next thing I'm gonna do is take the brake pads out of there and then slide the new rotor on. Always inspect your new part to make sure that it's the same as your old one. So those look like they come up to the same height and they're the same diameter and the holes look about right. Sometimes there might be minor differences, but as long as all the mechanical stuff is the same, so should just slide right on. Let's see if I can line it up here. Just one hand. Alright. So it looks like she fits. And then, yeah, should fit nice and flush. And then when you get that new brake pads on a caliper, it'll hold it right in place. So that looks like she fits. And then you got your brake cleaner here for if, like, while you're touching it, you know, it wouldn't hurt to wear gloves. But I got brake cleaner, so now I'm gonna get these pads out. So here's my pads inside the caliper. And then, yeah, you can see the metal clips that your new ones come with those. Otherwise, you can leave them in, but you know, if you're gonna change it, you might as well change them clips too. So these should just pop right out. That one fell out pretty easy. And then you can see it helps to put grease on the back of those too from sticking, but yeah, you can see these are getting some wear on them. They're rubbing. There's a good amount of pad, but you can see it's all scraped up more than with that weird type of dust from that old rotor scraping. So that's why I'm changing both these, because you can get them for cheap. So then, as you know, I always like to take video too, so I know which pad goes in which. So this one goes facing down. And then, as you can see here, there's this clip that you might have noticed in your bag. That will clip on this pad in that position. So the pads go that way, so then I know this one goes towards the pistons with that clip. And then the other one goes up top, and then, you know, the pads always face in, or the pad part always faces in. I think I got it backwards here, but yeah, you get it. So the next thing I need to do is compress these pistons, and you want to get them both evenly going down at the same time. This is where, you know, you could just have, if you bought a new caliper, but I didn't, so I'm going to compress these in, and to do that I'm going to use a C-clamp here. And then I'm going to use the old brake pad, and then I'm going to put the C-clamp on there and clamp it down to push these back in flush. Because when you get the new pads, the new brake pads have more, because you wore off the old pads, so you have to push those back down so you can fit in the new brake pads. Otherwise, there won't be room with the new brake pads to get over your rotor, because that whole thing just clamps right on over, so you got to push those down to make room for the new pads. Alright, so I have a C-clamp here, clamped down, and then there was the one piston, and then there's the other one. So I'm going to start turning this C-clamp, tightening, pushing it down. So just by hand, the C-clamp should be able to get it tight enough to easily push that piston down. You shouldn't have too much trouble hand pushing that in. Just that's why you want to go a little bit hand tight here, and then a little bit hand tight here, back and forth until that piston is completely flushed down as far as it'll go down, and you can't turn it anymore easily by hand. So then, yeah, I had it over there, and now I just moved it over, got it right centered underneath there, this top part on the pad, and then just tighten it down on this side. So there's the metal clip. It should only go in one way. You can see it's got that little thing facing up in the flat end. I did not see any in my pads here. So I'm gonna keep them ones that are in there, and then take that, match up the pad. I'm matching up the pad with the old one, so I know that this is the one that goes in here, and then to just fit, get it right, both sides. Hard to do it while I'm holding the camera, but so yeah, I might have to set the camera down here to get this pad in. I was hoping it would slide right in. Oh yeah, using 2 hands, it slid in pretty easily. If you have to wire brush that out to make it a little easier to get it in and push it down. Another thing to note when you're trying to push down those pistons, if it's getting stuck and you're having trouble but you know it's not down all the way, and you're hand tightening, it's getting pretty hard to hand tighten it, you can go back in the cab of the car and press on the brakes a little bit, and then that'll get the piston to move a little bit enough so you can push it down with the C-clamp. But so I have the bottom one in, and then I matched the top one up, and then you can see, yeah, the pads are going towards the front, and then yeah, so there's the metal clips. They should only go in one way. You can see it's got the small end at the top and then the bigger one end here, but same thing, you just slide your pad in, get it in the metal brackets. Yeah, I'm gonna have to use 2 hands here, but yeah, you get the idea. Slide it right up in, and then yeah, you can see that piston, that metal part of the pad is touching right on there where it should be, so I should have enough room. You know, it's a pretty close fit, but I'm gonna pop this one in here now then. Right, and the pad should fit right in like that, and then make sure you take that bungee out after. I should just do that now. Alright, I'm gonna hang it so I can't not see that. So yeah, keep the pads all the way in. Make sure that rubber hose is in the right position for when you put these on. Line up the brake pads, and then have your bolt ready. Have your bolt ready to bolt in one of these, and then the pads should just slide right over the rotor. But I'm gonna need 2 hands. Alright, trying to line up the bottom one. So yeah, just line up your steering knuckle, and then that's what's holding on your caliper. So yeah, line that up, and then get them in hand tight. And yeah, your one on the bottom here, hand tighten it in. Kind of if you need to wiggle it a little bit to be able to make sure you don't strip the threading. So this is where you want to put that anti-seize on them threads, which I didn't do, but I don't care, but I would recommend it, but I'm not doing it. Alright, so then it's on, and then I'm going to tighten these down to the torque spec, and then should be good to go, and give it a test drive. Do the other side, give it a test drive. And then there's your new rotor and pad. And then like right here, you can put that grease on the back side of your pads. I didn't do it. There's 200,000 on here. I just want to get this done. And then Yeah, there's the back side of it, and then yeah, just be careful with that hose. If you have to, before you even start, get the rotor, the pad, this caliper, and then this hose online. You might as well buy too, because it's cheap online. And if you break it, it'll save you a trip. Otherwise, get it at the store. And then if you don't have to replace this hose, you can just return it. But sometimes this hose can get stuff in it and mess you up, and you think you changed everything and it still doesn't work, but then it was just this hose when you were down here the whole time, and you could have just changed it. But I'm going to tighten these up now, and hopefully she works. Alright, new rotor and pad. This should have a little bit of play back and forth. The hose is still good. I don't like that. Hopefully that shouldn't be stuck in there like that. It should have play. Hopefully once I push that in, hopefully this piston didn't seize up while changing it. Yeah, you should be able to have a little bit of play in here, and always use your brake cleaner. Running low. Hopefully there should be some play there though. But yeah, that's how you change your rotors and pads.